Cyberpunk Edgerunners.
Edgerunners?
Another word for cyberpunk.
Cyberpunk has simultaneously managed to save my life and ruin my life. It has saved me by being the best show I've watched in 2022 and honestly reinvigorating my drive for writing fiction, but has ruined my life because now I use its slang in my everyday life, such as when I find my closest Tesco meal deal. Nova. What is possibly worse than that though is I fell for this 4 years in the making high-end production of an advertisement. I bought Cyberpunk 2077 to experience more of this world on the PS4. No, but really I bought it on PC and was immediately disappointed that didn't look exactly like the anime. I hope one of these red mods turns the aesthetic of the game into the anime, because if not I'll have to do it myself. What's more anime, Penis 1 or Penis 2? Luckily though, this is the first time I've fallen for a Netflix advertisement such as this, as it seems most of the controversy surrounding Cyberpunk 2077 seems to have been patched out. Most of it. And the same can't be said of Netflix's previous video game animated adaptation. If Netflix are only going to publish adaptations for video games, which have controversy, it might be possible to narrow down what will come next. Yep, that seems right. I really wasn't expecting anything when I went into this anime.
Emergency meeting?
Wait, let me explain myself. I knew next to nothing about Cyberpunk 2077 or the cyberpunk genre as a whole, and now I want to plan my own freaking tabletop campaign set in Night City. I mean, we've all seen this show's animation. Cyberpunk Edgerunners. The last thing this show was doing was edging me. And honestly, I don't think I had as much of a positive reaction to the beginning of the show compared to everyone else. I think the show gets better as it goes along, and the first episode is bogged down a bit by being forced to set up David as this lovable outcast who's a, fish out of water for the audience to relate to, and then also squeeze out an emotional monologue from Gloria before she goes out in a blaze of glory. When, honestly, I was much more attached to her with the little we saw of her normal interactions with David, but with all of that, this only did drop my ratings of this show to a 9. The rest of the show is playing at 11 out of 10 levels, and I honestly would argue it's a fucking 12, it's that good. But I didn't really like Gloria's monologue as it felt shoehorned in, but it paid dividends all the way in episode 10. I thought it was just there to set up David and have us relate to Gloria a bit more before she gets killed. I feel usually in anime where a family member dies, the main character is sad for like an episode, and then when they get past the initial hump, move on without any noticeable difference. But in episode 10, what David is hallucinating about as he's going to save Lucy isn't about being with Lucy and escaping to the moon, or this being a job where all the Edgerunners are still alive and there with him, but a hallucination of his mom. His mom, who he knew his entire life, not just for half an episode. Someone who shaped him more as a person than the rest of this cast, who he's known for what? A few months? It really showed me how deep David's trauma ran for the entire series, and how it wasn't just used as a springboard for his initial development. Let's quickly talk about subtext. We are told cyberpsychosis is brought on by having too many implants for the brain to handle, and that's true to an extent. People don't get cyberpsychosis with no cyber in them, but no one talks about what affects the tolerance level of each person, and the answer to that, I think, is trauma. War veterans with PTSD have a higher chance of cyberpsychosis. James Norris was a war veteran, and the Sandevistan quickly made him go cyberpsycho. We know this didn't happen with David, but it's never explicitly explained why he is special. I think the main factor is that compared to everyone else, David grew up relatively normally, and didn't experience anything traumatic at a young age. Sure, there were clear money problems, and David will probably have lived a rougher life than most people of the first world countries of today, but nothing outright damaging to his psyche happened. I mentioned that the first episode set David up as a relatable protagonist, as a bad thing, but in this show, it serves a narrative purpose. As the show goes on, while David's cyber implants does increase, so too does the trauma he experiences. First, his mother dies. Gloria has had 2 long-lasting effects on David in the show. Her life gave him his ability to be special in the first place, and her death is what started his downfall. David watches someone in his crew get shot, and then kills himself. David is then tortured by being forced to watch his own extremely violent death, possibly multiple times. He then watches his mentor and effective father figure lose his mind and get evaporated by an explosion, and then forces himself to lead the remains of the team left behind in an effort to live up to Maine's legacy. As David's doing this, he's killing more people. And while David excuses it by saying that they're criminals, I think it clearly has an effect on him, as he was badly hallucinating when the straw on the camel's back finally broke. David killed an innocent woman, a woman who reminded him immensely of his mom. That's where David flew over the edge, and the immunoblockers he was given were just used to delay the fall. Immunoblockers which were used a lot more quickly when David donned the cyber skeleton, or when he found out Lucy had been kidnapped. But when he was past this point of no return, a certified cyber psycho, Lucy was able to bring him back from the edge almost immediately. Not medicine from a corpse, just the woman he loved back in his arms. His massive metal arms. As soon as Lucy was there to help with the trauma, the root of the issue, David's symptoms stopped. Symptoms which immunoblockers just work to hide. Symptoms corporations monetize to mask, but not care about the human cost, which could also be fixed. When Maine had cyberpsychosis, while the immunoblockers gave him momentary clarity, as soon as he watched Dorio die, he became fully cognizant. Maine's murder spree wasn't an indiscriminate killing based in insanity, but out of mourning. If he had truly gone insane, he would have killed David without a second thought, like he attacked all the other members of the crew earlier in the episode, and wouldn't have prepared for Dorio what is the most respectable death in the entire show. I think Edgerunners did a phenomenal job of setting up rules for the viewer to figure out, but not giving away the full story in a method which at first glance might make you think that it's just a trope. And that's not the only subversion of expectations Edgerunners did for me. Normally, I hate media where characters ultimately fail in the end because of miscommunication, and that does happen in Edgerunners. If Lucy and David communicated to one another properly about Arasaka being after him due to his compatibility with the Sandevistan and wanting to use him as a guinea pig for the cyber skeleton, and how they could deal with that, they could have both gotten out, got like Dogecoin and gone to the moon. But the show does a phenomenal job on why they couldn't communicate. Lucy grew up as an Arasaka lab rat, and she did not want to be recaptured, which is why she wanted to deal with Arasaka subtly and have them hopefully give up on pursuing David. She definitely would not want him to live like she did, or worse, die like her friends did. David, on the other hand, if he learned about Arasaka being after him, would have probably wanted to take them head on, thinking he could because
I'm built different.
Or if not, well,
Don't make a name for yourself as a cyberpunk by how you live. Make a name by how you die.
or even worse, when considering his growing interests in implants, might have taken up any offer to test the cyberskeleton, because again, he's built different.
Keep an eye on him. Not a second out of your sight.
This show perfectly explains why these two couldn't talk it out, and things had to go the way they did. Does that mean they're not the perfect couple then if they can't communicate? No. Remember, David is still a teenager at this point. They're just a young couple blinded by fear, and by self-confidence and the need to live up to expectations. A couple who just make mistakes, but Night City will take any mistake and make it your last. It's a shame because David could have made it out with Lucy if he just did exactly what Maynard told him.
Just keep running.
And I would even argue that they are a perfect couple. David had Rebecca wanting to make moves on him, and he stayed loyal. That's true love right there. I mean, have you seen Rebecca? While we're on the topic of waifus, I can completely understand and agree why Lucy and Rebecca are on the forefront of this show's waifu wars. Lucy is a waifu who is one bad day away from becoming a yandere, and that bad day is episode 6. And Rebecca is a better drawing than I'll ever be a person. But the fact that nobody is even bringing up Dorio is a crime even by Night City standards. I mean, look at her!
You motherfucker!
Don't gotta worry about me.
Yeah, be a good boy! Stay!
I'm a good boy. The other thing I love about this show is the rules it lays down. The corporations are absolute. Night City is absolute. It's not like a kids movie where you defeat one big bad and the entire other side comes tumbling down. You take down one big exec, 5 others will come up the ranks to take their place. You somehow take down a corp, the others will just slurp up the market share. There is no stopping the machine because everyone is a cog in it. Everyone is there for their own type of self-interest, as the greater good is long dead. And on the off chance a group will come together for the greater good and take down the corpos, they'll never gain traction as the wider public will be too scared of how there'll be no one left to deal with the cyber psychos and the abhorrent violence in Night City. Night City is an immovable object, and David tried being an unstoppable force. He had the belief that he was special. The San Devastan didn't affect him in the way people said it would, so he thought he could keep going, even when he saw his mentor, his father figure, fall to cyberpsychosis. David even tried to become more like Maine, which is absolutely insane to me, but it was David's way to carry out the dreams of others. And he thought he could handle the weight of Maine's dream. Even when the cracks started showing and David started getting adverse side effects, he still didn't back down, which led to part of Lucy's distrust in confiding in him that Arasaka wanted to use him to test out the cyber skeleton. David's absolute belief that he was special, that he could handle all types of cybernetics, that he was
built different,
was his downfall. He was special until he met someone more special, like a straight-A student going to university and then meeting a load of other students who perform much better than they do with a lot less effort. You're special until you're not. You're sane until you're not. Oh yeah, I'm missing one thing to make this a Cyberpunk video, but how do I make this video become a